Good evening. A very warm welcome to one and all present here. Welcome to In Conversation, hosted by the School of Public Speaking. In Conversation is a series of discussions conducted by Manoj Thelakkat, the founder of the School of Public Speaking, with eminent professionals, entrepreneurs, educators, and other successful personalities from society. Today, we're privileged to have Venkatesh Vijayaraghavan as our guest. Venkatesh, fondly known as Venki, currently serves as the director and CEO of Cavinkare. In addition to directly taking care of the largest SBUs, personal care and alliances, he also serves as a senior board member and director, playing an active role in mentoring the various business verticals and SBUs on their strategy, go to market, and driving the overall strategic growth priorities of Cavincare. He also has an active interest in the startup ecosystem and has been making small angel investments and guiding some of the new economy startups. He is also an advisor on the board of one of the management programs offered by TAPI Management Institute. With a cumulative experience of over 24 years, Venki joined Cavincare in April 2018 after an exciting, extensive leadership stint of almost 20 years in the telecom industry. Prior to joining Cavincare, he was a long timer in Airtel. Venki has served in varied roles across strategy and operations. His last stint in Airtel was as CEO, Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, at Bharti Airtel, responsible for the overall business unit P&L for the AP Telecom Circle. Earlier on in his career, Venki had also worked with Reliance Industry and Escortel Mobile Communications. A chemical engineer from Anna University in Chennai, Venki has done his PGDMM from Times School of Marketing, Delhi. He has also completed executive management programs from Tepper School of Management, Carnegie Mellon University, and Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad. Venkatesh is a proud recipient of the Fulbright Scholarship awarded by the Board of Education and Cultural Affairs, USA. He is an avid reader and a marathoner, and he loves traveling, having traveled across the globe and lived in 8 cities across India in the last 24 years. He counts this as a priceless experience of living and traveling amidst various cultures and people. Welcome, Venkatesh.
Thank you.
Manoj Thelakkat is the CEO of Flexi Partners, a 14-year-old HR consulting firm focused on leadership hiring, with operations in India, Dubai, Qatar, and Oman. He is the founder of Reflex Training Partners, an experiential learning organization that uses theatre as a methodology of training. He is the director of the Bengaluru Schools Education Initiatives and runs one of the largest online platforms on schooling and parenting, called Bangalore Schools, with a member strength of more than 52,000 parents. Manoj has been part of the BNI, the world's largest referral organization, as the past president of BNI Billionaires and as part of the regional training team of BNI Bangalore. He is a passionate speaker and has been a public speaking coach for the last 20 years. This led to him founding the School of Public Speaking. He pioneered the online public speaking workshops during the lockdown, and through these, he has helped close to 500 children and adults overcome their fear of public speaking. Over to you, Manoj.
Thank you, Anantita. Thanks a ton for that. Venki, welcome. It is an absolute pleasure to see you here in a very formal setting. And then thank you for accepting this invite. This is the third in its series of In Conversation. So this is a panel, this is a discussion series that is planned wherein I would want to invite people from various facets of life, maybe it be entrepreneurs, be it be professionals, leadership people who can come and share their ideas, thoughts, which can inspire and influence people. So this conversation that I would want to have with you, like we discussed, is to kind of look at the journey of being a CEO. And one of the people whom I've seen really making their way up in a very short period of time is you. And I thought you are the perfect person to come and discuss about this to the children, young professionals, others who are aspiring to be it. We're also joined by quite an eminent group of people who are watching it live in the Zoom and also in the Facebook Live that we are sharing. So thank you, Venki. Welcome to In Conversation, the series done by School of Public Speaking.
My pleasure, Manoj. Thanks for the introduction. I think when you did speak to me on this, the only thing that ran in my mind is, of course, we've run a little bit, a lot more miles to go. But yeah, when you sit back and relax a little bit to look backwards, it does feel a little happy. But I think the bigger thing, like you said, is this journey, if it can bring out some learnings, and I've been a very firm believer and a very great beneficiary of learnings that have been shared by my seniors with me. And I think if there's something that if can be picked up as learnings for anybody for that matter, and if I can help that path, I think that's something that I would relish. And I think this conversation, I think, would probably help me do that small piece back to this group.
Wonderful. That's the whole idea, because I think learning is something that never stops, and as you share it more, more people benefit, and you yourself benefit from that. So that's the whole idea. We've been part of a journey long back, many years back, and we shared some thoughts that point of time. So let me take you back there, and then let me ask the first question that I have for you. Just take us through this whole journey, where you started it, Venki, and to where you are today. So quickly take us through that journey, please.
So I'm basically from South. I did my, having been born in a place called Tiruthirai, that's near Tanjavur, the Delta Belt. And I did my entire schooling in a place called Tutukurin. It's notoriously famous now, but it's that's the place that I grew up. I did my entire schooling in Tutukurin. And then, like always, wanted to graduate out, and I was quite clear that between medical, engineering, various other things, engineering was something that fascinated me. And I think that was also a part of the norm those days, that you either become an engineer or a doctor. So we belong to an era where possibly, unlike today's kids, we didn't have much choices when it came to professional choices to be made. So I did move in, and I did my chemical engineering graduation from Anna University, Chennai. Post-graduation, I worked for 3-4 years with Reliance Industries in their petrochemical industry space. That's where I got my bearings. My bearings in terms of one, what you learn in college, are you able to apply that back into the industry? It's very different. It's not necessary that all that you learn theoretically gets applied practically. And second, in the industrial setup, as a youngster, you get to actually handle a lot more people who are far more experienced than you, right? And that's a big learning that I picked up in those 3-4 years, because you enter in as a trainee knowing very well that the person who's going to train you is the person probably going to report into you a couple of years down the line, right? And it is always it's a scenario where probably the other person has nothing to lose, and you have everything to gain if you get the confidence of the other person, right? And I think the leadership started there, and I think for the lessons of leadership started there, where of course as engineering trainees you get into that particular industry. You have a host of experienced people who are practically experienced, who know much more than you practically, but of course respect you for the knowledge that you have, having done through college and other stuff, right? It was a win-win, and I think it's a very, very pleasant relationship. I cherish a lot of my relationships from that stint. They still are in touch with me. I'm in touch with them. That was with industries for almost 3 years. And then I did my, I was more interested in media. Frankly, I was interested in media at that time, and Times offered me a platform to be a part of that journey. And that's how I got into Times School of Marketing. But unfortunately, as you would always say, probably destiny was slightly different. I do believe in destiny, and I think destiny was slightly different, that probably you, me, then had the opportunity to join in one of the industries that was actually defining the country's landscape, telecom. And so post-graduation, I joined telecom. Then I've been there for quite some time, telecom for almost 20 years, a couple of years, the first 3-4 years with Escatel Mobile Communication. Very interesting space again, a very interesting a company where I learned a lot of my marketing elements there. Then I moved on to be a part of Airtel. Airtel has been quite a stint for the last probably 15 years. I was with Airtel at various roles across the country, some stints that were a little abroad, but 15 years of Airtel, I think it was a brilliant experience that I had with a lot of people, many stalwarts. And then, of course, made a change. And the change again was interesting in my mind. After 15 years of telecom, normally people come from FMCG into telecom. I probably was among the few people who made back from telecom into FMCG, and completely new learning curve in the sense that while yes, some parts of leadership is all there, but the industry is completely different. And I think one of my biggest challenges has been to completely unlearn and learn again from an industry perspective, which I think is reasonably okay. So that's been my journey so far, all throughout, enjoying the stints, enjoying the relationships that we built, enjoying every part of the journey so far, Manoj.
Wonderful. Venki, so at what point of time that in this 24 years that you've been at various places, various careers, various organizations, at what point of time did it hit you that, okay, I can be a CEO?
So like I said, I think you meet varied set of people during your journeys, right? You meet a lot of leaders, and you start picking up a lot of learnings from them, right? From the first stint that I mentioned, I've seen a lot of people who've been very confident, who are very thought-provoking, who have the capability to convince a lot of people. I think there are some things that we pick up as you move. So one of the things that I was very clear is, as I did the stint with the industrial stint, and when I did look around, I think one of the things that came around was very clearly that, yes, there's a little bit of experience that you need to build in leading people. I mean, whatever journey that we do, whether you do your own business, whether you do something else professionally, at some point of time, you would need to lead people, or at least not lead people just by hierarchy. But I think every time you need to convince a lot of people to get your work done. Ideas are, in this world, ideas can be generated very easily. If you really put in your mind and a thought, ideas can be generated. But to get an idea executed by your own self or by a couple of other people, you need a lot of leadership skills. And that's something that I think over a period of time I realized, and that's what pushed me towards it. Frankly, the journey was not aimed necessarily to become a CEO per se, but I think that happened as it happened. But I think the journey was very clearly to say, how do I equip myself learning a lot, one, and two is, how do I actually be in a position where I can influence people? And that's something that I think has been sort of a guiding principle that I've always applied through my life. So it is always about respecting other people and always believing that it could be your thought, but if your thought needs to get executed, you will need to go through you could call it pain, the pleasure, but you need to convince people. And there's a lot more things that you need to do, whether you're an entrepreneur or a professional. Absolutely. Or for that matter, even at family.
Agreed. So you're trying to mix that in terms of the skill that is required there, which is very nice. So another question which typically comes is that, I mean, whenever you do studies and whenever you look at it, a very small percentage of people who start off with a career, many of them probably have this vision, or many of them want to be at the leadership level. But if you look at it in terms of sheer percentages, there is very little space on top. So it's always that pyramid like that. So not many make it, right? So many of them give it halfway through. Many of them try a lot and then kind of hit the ceiling and say, okay, this is not for me. So what is that one or two key things that are required to ensure that the journey continues to the top of the pyramid?
Okay, first of all, let me tell, I think probably I'm not qualified to answer that question. I'm still trying to make it. Right? But yeah, but whatever we see, I think you've seen people, I've seen people. I think whatever we see, there are 2-3 things that I think makes it clearly. One is a very strong self-confidence that we have in ourselves, right? At the end of the day, if we don't believe in ourselves, nobody else is going to believe in us. So I think self-confidence is the first point that I would say. And that self-confidence stems from our capability to do things. So a lot of times when we come under this pressure of, are things happening well? Are they happening as per plan? Definitely, they don't happen as per plan. In the way I would always say, I always believe that it's a marathon, and the marathon you can't pace it. Sometimes you go fast, sometimes you go slow, but at the end of the day, you keep moving, right? You can't stop anywhere in between. You need to keep moving, and that's the pace at which that particular game needs to be played and run. So I think it's a marathon that you need to prepare with ups and downs. Throughout the journey, if you don't have your self-confidence with you, that's the first thing I think I've seen a lot of leaders display very clearly. Irrespective of what happens, irrespective of the situation, the conviction that they have does not change, right? Self-confidence and the conviction that they have does not change. And I think that's one thing that I would clearly see as something sometimes people miss out when they go. Nothing wrong if you've missed it, because at the end of the day, it's not that everybody becomes everything. And all of us are good in what we do. But fundamentally, fundamentally, it's about conviction. I think that's the first thing that I would very strongly believe that makes a lot of people move up the ladder, right? Or do things that are very different, do things that are not necessarily in hierarchy, but I think do things that change the world. I think conviction is the first point I would see. I have seen a lot of people display that. Second, I think is, like I said, learning does not stop. At every point of time, you cannot rest. You will need to continuously keep learning, keep ideating, and I think keep accepting new challenges. Now, if you were to sit back, for example, I would admire you for the School of Public Speaking. I think you at the right time you brought it in. It is about an idea. It is about continuously innovating, which is basis the learning that we do. If I don't keep learning, and at some point of time I think I've arrived, I think then it stops. One of the key differences I've seen with leaders, especially leaders that I've seen personally, I think there are a lot of political leaders we see, there are a lot of business leaders which we have not directly exposed to, but the leaders that I've been exposed to, very clearly I can see that they don't stop the learning, and they don't stop. There's nothing that stops them. And therefore, I think continuous learning, continuously accepting challenges, I think is the second big thing that I would see amongst people who have moved in. The third big piece, many other things, but I would call out these three. The third big thing that I would call out is humility. Any leader that I've seen, I haven't seen them for a moment where they don't be humble with people, right? Whatever be their achievements, whatever they are, at the end of the day, many of the leaders that I've seen have been humble. Equally, I've seen a couple of people, which I think I should point out. Equally, I've seen a couple of people who've not been humble enough and probably fell the way out at some point of time. So I think humility, ability to learn, and self-confidence. I would say these are three things that probably are things that I've seen enable people make the cut differently.
Wonderful. Beautifully summed up, Venki, because I think this is something that the kids who are listening or would listen to us, or the parents who are listening, I think these are three things that really stand out, right? For example, when you said humility, I always go back and we always have these discussion between ourselves that there is no institution, there is no education system that teaches humility. So that's something that is really missing in whatever we are trying to do. Or we say, okay, self-confidence. These are all skills that have to be imbibed. It doesn't matter if you want to be a CEO, or if you want to be an entry-level person, or anybody for that matter, like you said. Three amazing steps that you said: self-confidence, conviction, continuous learning, and humility. So beautifully summed up, Venki. I take the question from there. Now, there is a question that has come up from somebody who's attending here. So thanks for that question. So the question says, how can a fresher know if he or she has these leadership skills? Venki?
Yeah, interesting question. See, okay, let me just share a personal example. See, all of us go through these 360-degree feedback. In companies, we go through this 360-degree feedback and all that, right?
Yes.
If I were to go back and look at my feedback in the first 5 years, the biggest feedback that I got is you are too much of an introvert. You will need to start moving around with people and being a little more pushy with people, right? That's the feedback I got. So I'm saying for freshers, don't be bothered. You never know when life takes a turn, right? I think it is all about, like I said, and that was a moment that probably I realized, and maybe it goes back to the earlier question that you asked me. I realized that, listen, in my mind, I wanted to be a person who's able to convince people. But at the end of the day, the feedback coming to me is, you're not very assertive. You are too much of an introvert. You need to be a little more open. Now, that's where it opened up to say, listen, I will have to prove that not just for the world, but for my own self in the first beginning, right? So I think for the freshers, you will never know when you get an opportunity. But I think some of these things that you need to be clear about is if you are clear about what you want to do directionally, and not necessarily that all of us need to be CEOs, all of us need to be entrepreneurs. I'm not a good entrepreneur, but probably I'm doing my professional work a little more better. A lot of us will have different things where we can succeed in. I think the first thing that is important is, are you passionate about it? If you are passionate about it and you believe that that passion can be actually taken to a lot more people, that's where I think this whole journey starts. So I think to a lot of my young friends, I would say, don't be bothered about where the journey is going to take you. Life is full of turns. You will suddenly realize that Some turns are very positive. Some turns are a little more pulling you back. Doesn't matter. But I think the first thing is just be passionate and enjoy what you do. Second thing is you will get enough and more opportunities of feedbacks throughout from people, which will tell you where you stand. Now, it is about us to listen to it. It could be your friends. It could be your own organizations that you work. It could be somebody like this group where there are groups that help you. So I think it is always important that we are open to listening feedback about us. And the more we are able to actually understand that feedback and correct ourselves, I think that will help us lead the journey into this. So be passionate. And I think whatever you like, you do, but do it with the full conviction. I think that's the way I would put it.
So you put a right word there. One of my favorite words that always I keep repeating: passion. So that's something that is always used, abused, reused, and that's something that I always live by, because don't do anything that you're not passionate about. Can passion be your food? I don't know, but don't enter into something that you are not passionate about. So how much does passion really matter to you, Venki, in terms of what you do and what you aspire to do? How much does passion really matter to you?
I think the basics of anything to me is passion, right? At the end of the day, if you don't have that passion, you just do it as a livelihood, or if you do it just like what you need to be doing, somewhere I think it may not work. Passion defines the extent to which you're willing to stretch yourself, right? And you need to stretch. And I think the difference when it comes in at a lot many times is we see people who are willing to stretch, we see people who are not willing to stretch. And that comes in basically from the passion that they display for that particular opportunity, right? So passion to me is the starting point of anything and everything that I would say. Amongst everything else, you may have the skill, you may have the talent, but if you're not passionate about what you do, you will not be able to. The two things that happen: one, you don't seem to be exuding that whole confidence, and you don't seem to be exuding that excitement that is needed. Second is the person in front of you can see you through, that you're not passionate about what you're doing. Why would that person or why would that group of people come along with you if you're not passionate about it? Right? Whether it's a startup, whether it's a job, whether it is your own ideas, or even a trip that you want to go. When you go along with 5 friends, and if you're not passionate about the trip, why would the friends come along with you? At the end of the day, they're not going to be excited about the trip, right? Absolutely. So I think passion to me, I think is the most fundamental stuff that I would always believe to be there. If I'm not passionate about something, I think to a large extent possible, don't do it.
Wow. Okay. So Venki, knowingly, unknowingly, you've put 2 more points to the first 3 that you've already added. So when you said about conviction, learning, and humility, you added 2 more points to this. And one is passion, definitely. And the second one is listening to feedback. So that I think that's a critical thing that many people in the corporate line are not willing to take. So when forget 360-degree appraisal, forget any of that formats that people follow. Even a genuine feedback normally is not taken. So I think that's a very interesting point that you brought out in terms of ready to be listening, a willingness to listen to feedback. So I've got 5 points. So that was one question that I wanted to ask you on: what are the tips that children need to, or people who want to grow up the ladder need to listen to? I've already got 5 tips, so we will keep adding to that tips as we speak. The other thing which you initially said, Venki, in terms of the first person who trained you, and you had other people, leaders that you look up to. So one thing which I'm always interested in knowing is that how important is this whole mentor? Do you have a mentor, or how important is having a mentor in this journey? Because this is, as you said, this is not a 100-meter dash. This is a marathon, and you definitely need your pacers. You definitely need people who can work with you. So how important is a mentor for you, Venki?
It's very important. I think I've been fortunate to have a lot of my people, a lot of my seniors who've been willing to help me when I'm in need, right? What a mentor does is actually to help you understand where you're going wrong, or what is it that you're probably doing right. So they help you understand your strength, your weaknesses. It's like a friend. I think it's like a friend, but they're a little more than a friend, that they're able to actually help you understand a little bit and help you navigate some of the challenges that you have. Mentorship to that extent, I think, is a big boon. If somebody can have a good mentor, And there's nothing like that. It is like a guru. I would say it is like a guru or a teacher. But all of us have been shaped in our schools. But I have my favorite teachers from school even today, right? And thanks to WhatsApp, thanks to technology, we've been able to be in touch with them today, and through school reunions and all that stuff. But I think mentorship is very important. Mentor plays a very important role in anybody's career, for the simple reason that they help you navigate it very clearly and basis their experience that they have, right? And therefore, when you reach out to people, and one of the things that I've learned, and one of my mentors very clearly told me is, when you reach out to somebody, right, you are that person's responsibility. And this is something that I think I firmly believe in. When somebody reaches out, when you reach out to somebody and that somebody responds to you, over a period of time, if you see that somebody would be interested in your development as well, absolutely, they would proactively follow up with you. Are you doing this? How are you today? Are things moving up for you? Not moving? So a mentor is somebody who actually is a sort of a shadow that helps you keep moving. And it's one of those guides that are required, right? And I go back to the marathon example again. There is something called a pacer, right? When you run, there's somebody who comes along with you. Now, depending on your speed, you move into different groups, but there's always a group leader for the group who paces the journey so that you don't run too fast, you don't run too slow, but you run along with the group. For the beginners, that's a very big help, right? When you start running, that's a very big help that you get, because that person knows that you're going to run at a 2-hour speed or a 3-hour speed, and he puts you into a group which moves along, and he runs along with you. So he or she runs along with you. So I think that way, mentors are a big one. I'm fortunate. I have a lot of mentors like that I've seen. You know, a couple of them. Som, for example, has been one of our mentors, right, from Escotal days, right? There are a lot of people like that I've seen over the years who have helped me a lot. We stay in touch even today. And I think that way, I think I've been blessed with having mentors, and I think that's the whole benefit that we get. The only thing there is, I think the key thing is we have to reach out to people. People don't reach out to us, one. And two is, I think, like I said, you need to be open to feedback. If you ask feedback and you don't listen to the feedback, then it's of no use. So I think that way, but mentors in my life is a boon.
Absolutely. Okay. I was just about to ask that question and you answered it in between. So does the mentor happen to you? Like you're just walking into office and this guy suddenly appears in front of you. Never happens right that, right? You always need to reach out, identify that mentor. So what do you look up to when you need a mentor? Because we know, like, for example, you said Som, because that's somebody I want to talk to at some point of time in this series as well. As 20 something kids that we came into Escotal days, and then you have the CEO of the company and coming and telling you that don't call me sir, call me by name. And I was taken aback because I came from a company which had the sir culture always, and then you have the super boss of your company saying don't call me sir, call me name. And then you said, and I think that was my first lesson on humility in corporate life. What do you say, Venki?
Yeah, I think like you said, these are things that we picked up a long time ago. Today, these are things that many people follow, but I think long time ago, this was put in place. So clearly, yeah, I think it is, and I think it is also about you tend to see, when you look at people, you tend to have a liking for people, or you start admiring them, right? You start admiring some people. Some people are accessible, some people are not accessible. But when you admire somebody and you see that, yeah, wow, this person, I admire this person, right? Then you walk up to them and then you strike a conversation. Over a period of time, the conversation goes into things that are relatable with each other. And then you pick up this whole stuff. So I think it is about a mutual respect for each, and equally the mentor has a mutual respect for you as well. So it's about a mutual respect that you develop, a bond that you develop. And I think over a period of time, that may transcend even professional relationship, become a friendship as well. But I think the onus is on us. Onus is on us as individuals to walk up. When you admire somebody, don't keep it to you. Just walk up and talk. I think one thing that I've learned throughout my life, when you talk to people, people talk to you, right? If you stand back, people may think that you're a little arrogant. People may think, boss, this guy is maybe doesn't know anything. But I think as long as we're open and we keep talking to people, all of these magics keep happening. It is about connecting. In my view, it is just about connecting, and then things will happen.
I'm very sure, Manki, with the kind of wisdom that you're sharing now, a lot of people are looking up to you as a mentor for themselves. I'm very sure that is happening on the side. So I have another interesting question which is coming up, and I've got this question as a repeat question. How important is educational qualifications in this whole journey? So is that a big deal maker or a deal breaker. So how important is educational qualifications? And especially I would want to ask you, because we both are small town boys. So you come from Tiruthurepundi, I come from another small town in Kerala. So how important is educational qualifications in this whole journey, Venki?
See, I think I wouldn't call it educational qualification. I think it is about some of the basics, because you also see a lot of people who have not done formal education but do very well, right? So, for example, the current organization that I work with, that I head, Cavinkare, the entrepreneur who started it, Mr. C.K. Ranganathan, he's not had his formal education initially. He did take his education later on, but he did not initially, when he started the business, he did not have his formal education completely, right? And you've seen a lot more people like that, but they've been successful. So I think it is not about education qualification. I think it is about what enables us to learn much better. Now, whether you're an engineer or whether you're a doctor, there are some skills which are different. For example, doctors, they're different because they service the world in a very different way, and you need that formal education to service the world properly, right? There are some learnings which are not necessarily needed to be taken through books. They come by practice, they come by application of practice, right? So in my mind, education qualification, is it a must? I would say I think a certain minimum amount of education qualification is important, because I think education has its own impact on an individual. Be it in the way you behave with society, be it in the way you understand your strengths. So education, I think, has a lot more that can bring to you to the table. Will it help you on? Will it help you understand certain things? Yes. So to that extent, I think I would believe that education is important to shape you up. Whether you go to school, whether you mix with people, whether you understand, I think. But should it be an MBA? Should it necessarily be an MBA from a top premier school? Should it be an MBA from a bottom school? Doesn't matter. I think at the end of the day, what many people have demonstrated is it is about some basics that you need to have, which is important. And I think for a lot of us, that basics of education is important. A few of us might do without education and do well. But for a lot of us, I think education becomes a plank which helps us get a sort of leg up in terms of the way we work. For example, for me, what did it do? It helped me actually get exposed to a lot of people who are much better than me, right? So it gave me a plank where even before I entered into some areas, I was able to understand my strengths and weaknesses. I was able to compare myself with people. So, for example, like you and me said, we would have come from a place where probably English is not necessarily the strength of the person, right? But when you get into engineering, if it is going to be English, you will have to learn English, right? You would force yourself to learn English, right? So it is about a system that gives you an opportunity to be on equal footing with people. It is up to us to take it, not take it. It is not that if you don't take it, you won't succeed. At the end of the day, recipe for success is different. These are things that are fundamentals that help you build your success, right? And we not necessarily, some of us do premium institutes, some of us don't go to premier institutes, but maybe we need to make it up with something else. What it does is it gives you a platform to be able to improvise yourself. And I think that's the only thing. So why would I, for example, would I suggest anybody a global education? If you can afford, yes, because a global education exposes you to different cultures, different people. Not necessary that to succeed you need a global education, but probably some part of that experience will help you as you grow. So if you can afford it, why not? But it doesn't mean that if you can't afford it, you need to be sitting in a corner and crying, saying, well, I can't do anything about it. You can do much more things even without that. So I think just to be clear is, it is important. It is not the end of everything, but it's an important part of your journey to help you shape yourself a little more better than you would do. Otherwise, you would do it a little more harder way.
Okay, so if I understand right what you're saying, Venki, that education that you choose shapes you up. What you want to do with it is completely up to you. Because
Yeah.
I'm very sure that none of these institutes, doesn't matter where you go, they don't teach you passion, they don't teach you lifelong learning, they don't teach you humility, they don't teach you how to take a feedback. So some of the key points that you spoke about are not taught in these places. But yeah, it definitely, probably it also helps you start a career well. So I think to get a good start with a very formal structured education that you've got, and then you want to have a start of your career, maybe that helps. Because as a recruitment professional, I do come across a lot of them who started from who have the pedigree of some amazing institutes, started excellently well, and have completely lost way. And then they don't know where they are, what they are doing, what they want to do. So I think that is the missing link, and that comes from the wisdom that you're sharing now. So Venki, I totally agree and appreciate that view that you've said. There is another question which is come from Mr. Narasimha. So is it not important for the modern generation CEOs to focus on emotional quotient also, and not just in the IQ? So how important is EQ in today's work generation is what he's asking. So what do you say, Venki?
I think it's the right question. So when I see people, or when I say people, it is about the emotional quotient, right? Connecting with people, looking at people, looking. So when as a leader of a group, when you lead from the front, I think it's one of the things that is important is it's not about what you think. It is about how energized is your team to be able to take it along with you. Your thought process or their thought process, a common objective. How do teams take them energized? And energy comes in only when you understand emotion. Energy cannot come in when it cannot be just about doing a lot of things that you do for the sake of doing it. It is built on emotion, right? And therefore, I think emotional quotient is equally important as IQ. I would say yes. Because at the end of the day, a lot of team leaders, if they don't emotionally connect with the teams, if they don't have that emotional quotient as leadership, they would definitely not be able to drive the teams down the line. So you would end up having a lot of people who are individually talented, but you do need people who are going to bring all of that together. So emotional quotient in my mind is a very critical one. Organizations have realized that. A lot of organizations today also have started measuring it and placing a premium on it.
So I hope we've answered that question, Mr. Narasimha. If you have if you need to ask anything more, please do put it on the chat box, and I'll be happy to answer that, Mr. Narayan Swami. Okay, so there are questions coming up, Venki. So interesting questions coming up. So we have Dr. Shamim who's asking us, how can we identify whether the passion of a higher secondary student is genuine or not? I know that you love working with children and you love to kind of work, help them up. Do you want to take that question, Venki? How do you identify whether the passion of a higher secondary student is genuine or not? I know you have one at home. So what is your answer, Venki?
See, in fact, if you ask me, unbridled passion is only seen in these people, right? All of us get corrupted over a period of time. As we grow up, all of us get corrupted sometimes. But I think these kids don't get corrupted, right? And you see, I think at the end of the day, if you were to ask me, the way I would look at it is, if there is a firm belief that that kid is actually showing in what he or she is doing, right? And that belief is genuine, one, and very strong, despite so many other things that happen, they're very strong about it. I think that's when I realized that they're passionate about what they're doing, right? So, for example, when my daughter wanted to do design, the first reaction that she's getting into design now, the first reaction that I had was to say, why would it be design? I mean, where is this? I mean, for me as a person, I've not got exposed to design as a profession too much, except when I came into the current job. But otherwise, as a parent, I was never exposed to design as an industry or as a part. Yeah, parts of fashion design you understand, parts of some of the other stuff that you understand. So the first thing that I was a little more hesitant with her is to say, why would you do this? Are you sure you want to do this? Are you doing this because your friends are doing it? Is it a fad? Right? So it took me 6 months to understand from where she was coming. But all throughout the 6 months, she was quite clear that she was maintaining the same stance despite the pressures that we put on her, despite what we say. So in a way, yes, I can answer this question because I've seen this live. And I've seen this when you see the management trainees when they come in, or when you see some of the trainees coming in. The passion that they bring in, the energy that they bring in certain areas when you talk to them, and when they're strongly convinced on some things, I think that's when I realized that, boss, yes, these guys are convinced about what they want to do. Let them do it, because at the end of the day, they also have the capability to decide, right? Maybe they'll go wrong once, but they'll correct themselves later. But I think fundamentally, if I were to look at passion, I would look at how are they assertive about that particular thing, despite pushing them back. Are they assertive? One, do they continuously have the conviction without wavering in thought? Right now, that's a maturity that not every time the kid displays, but the kid displays it definitely when they are confident and they are passionate about what they want. I think that's the way I would put it.
So it is not just that they are passionate about it because their best friend is doing it or the neighbor's kid is doing it. They have done their research, they have done their study. So I think the lesson is that the parent also needs to do that similar kind of a study. If it is something that you don't know, just don't say no. Have that communication going on and then decide on it, because we are in the same boat in that. Because my daughter who just introduced you, we are also going through that journey, and I hope that passion that she's showing at this point of time, I think it's a very genuine passion, and we've decided what she wants to do with life. So as parents, I think it's very important that we support them in that journey, but be very sure that the communication is happening, and you are also convinced with what they want to do. So I think, Dr. Shamim, we've taken that answer, and right. Okay, Venki, there's an interesting question coming up in terms of the feedback, because I think that's something that you shared in terms of your journey and how important feedbacks were for you. So the question is that feedbacks at times can be contradicting. How do you know that it is the right feedback, and how do you choose the right feedback?
Okay. No, good question. I think so. See, first of all, there are some ground rules which I personally have done in my. It's fun. See, if the feedback consistently is coming in from people, then I think it's a feedback that you can't ignore, right? When 10 people tell you the same thing and they have no vested interest with each other, then obviously they're interested in you. That's why they're giving you this feedback, and it's consistent, right? So consistent feedback is something that we have to take seriously. There's no two doubts about it. There could be scenarios where, depending on where that person is seeing you, or under which circumstances the person is seeing you, the feedback could be slightly different. For example, the way you react to certain situations, not everybody in the system would have got exposed to it, but very few people would have got exposed. So for an outsider, you might look like, the situation might look like normal. For an insider who knows you well, the feedback would be very different, that you're not handling it properly. So I think that is something that we need to be clear as to, and it also goes with the mentor point that you said. It is important that some feedback from some people, we value it from the circumstances from which they're giving the feedback, right? Now, that is the way I would look at it. So it may not, for example, for a fresher, it may not be as critical or as complex as what I'm explaining, but as you move forward, these things will happen. There are certain people who see you more critically than somebody else who sees you. That feedback is valid. And therefore, even if somebody else doesn't give you that feedback, but this person gives you that feedback, you take that feedback. So feedback, I think, will have to be taken with a pinch of salt every time. And equally so, you would get feedback from people who probably you don't believe in. Don't ignore the feedback then. So I think it is about having a set of people whom you trust in, having a set of people whom you believe are interested in you, get feedback from them. If the whole world gives you feedback and that feedback is consistent, please believe that you're wrong. Right.
Simple. So we put it very interestingly. We put it very easily, Venki. Thank you for that. So another one which is interesting, and it's come from Aditya Bala. I think it's the same Aditya that I know. What is your take on surrounding ourselves with people who are smarter than ourselves? And how has it helped you shape your career and shaped yourself as a person? Is it still helping you even today after becoming a successful CEO? Venki.
Yeah, so that's a pretty interesting question, right? I'm just smiling because I just saw a video from Steve Jobs, right? And we were exchanging notes with somebody else on the same. So Steve Jobs also made the same comment, and I think and he's far more successful than any of us. So I think I'll probably quote him. It is important that you surround yourself with people who are smarter than you, right? It is also in selfish motive. It is just not general, but it's also in selfish motive. From an organization perspective, if you look at it, it is important that you have people who are far more smarter, because at the end of the day, smart people will understand the issues comprehensively and they'll push you back, right? So as a leader, I've always felt, and I think it's important, and this is something that I've seen all leaders experience and also demonstrate, you will need to have good people of very high caliber, people who are much better than you, below you, right? Or with you. The reason for that is that it is important that you are able to get counter views and you're able to push and pull each other as an organization. So organizations can never succeed if they are hierarchy led. The boss cannot be right always, will never be all right always. In most of the cases, the boss is the biggest problem in the company, right? So it is always that you need people who will stand up and tell you, boss, what you're doing is wrong. Don't do this. That ability to tell you only comes in when they know their worth and they know that they are confident and strong, which means they have to be equally as good as you or better than you, right? So there is no doubt, from a professional perspective, from an organizational perspective, bringing in smart people is the right thing to do. And organizations, in fact, have to watch out if leaders don't bring people smarter than them into the organization, right? That's a pitfall.
Venki, just to tell you something, because this is something that I think a lot of my HR folks here because as a recruitment company, this is something that I keep pushing people, because that's the biggest challenge, honestly, Venki, because the moment you're scared that your seat is in trouble, you stop hiring right people. You look at always people who will listen to you, and you don't have to listen to them. So you're saying that there should be people who are ready to come up and say that the king is naked. Is that what you're
Yes,
saying?
exactly. And I think as a leader, it's important for us. So the biggest job as a leader is for you to be able to take this conflict and manage this conflict, right? It pushes you. Personally, I've seen when I've come across these situations, I've learned a lot, and I keep telling the same thing again. So when you see somebody who's smarter than you, there are two things that happen. Either you get afraid, you get a little jittery, possible. The second way to look at it is to say, why do you need to be jittery? You step up, and the sense that you increase your pace now. So otherwise, like I said, the learning never stops. And therefore, I think you need people who want to push you continuously learn. Today, for example, digital and e-commerce today, from our journey, we've never had e-commerce at all. If as a leader, if I'm afraid of bringing in people who learn that business much more, I would actually be doing injustice to the company and to myself. You will need to listen to people. And it is feasible that you will have to listen to people and develop. The biggest challenge there for leaders is you will need to be critical about yourself and accept the fact that you don't know something, right? And therefore, either you learn or you listen. So I've always taken this, and I think I've taken this part to say, let me learn and let me prove a point to myself again. And so you keep on the journey again and keep learning. I think that's the way I would put it. So it is always important. And in personal life as well, I think it's important because it gives you joy. At the end of the day, it gives you joy when you have smarter people around with you, right? And only, in my view, only a very few set of people, I don't want to name the profession, only a few set of people would always have people who are less smarter than you below them. But I don't think we as individuals need to do that.
Wonderful. Thank you, Venki, for that. That's the best way to sum it up in terms of that question. But it takes me to the next question, which you rightly put it there, in terms of upskilling, because that's a challenge that most of us have faced who started careers early. So 85% of the jobs that existed maybe 20 years does not exist. Maybe 85% of the jobs, one of the studies which said that 85% of the jobs will not exist after 10 years. So, but the people who are currently employed need to be employed. They can't change 85% of the people. So what do you do with those people? How do you ensure that that upskilling is happening, or what do you do, or what do you suggest as a leader to ensure that that upskilling is happening? Venki.
So I think we follow two things here. One is something that we follow in. So in Cavinkare today, we follow that very clearly, and I think that's something that our chairman is very passionate about equally. I think it is about what we call saying invest in yourself, right? So the organization helps you invest in yourself. You pick up the area that you want to skill yourself, pick up learning, continuously learn, demonstrate that learning. So it's a very formal way of helping people understand where do they lack the learning, or what do you need to learn for the future. Start learning. For example, one of the exercises that I personally lead is something called invest in yourself in digital, right? A lot of us don't understand digital and e-commerce today. So what we have done over the last 3-4 months, or the last 6 months, especially with the pandemic coming in, thanks to the virtual environment, we've got a group of 30-40 people, brand managers, marketing people, come together, and we start sharing experiences of what we've learned. So there are a couple of people who come and say, these are the case studies that I've done. I've learned this brand, I've seen this brand, the brand had a challenge, now they become digital. How did they become digital? So you bring in a lot of people from environment where they're working in digital environment, they come and teach us. So it is in a way, a formal way of actually reskilling people depending on the future. That's one way of doing it. So two things that we do. One, that we enable as an organization people to come back and say, listen, this is an area I want to skill myself with, and provide opportunities to them so that formally they can learn. Second is enable people to understand their space that they're operating. What is the gap area? And that gap area, how do you address? So at an organization level, that's what we do. So we help people identify the gaps, show them the mirror, not from a perspective of frightening them, but from a perspective of saying, boss, if you don't understand where you stand today, you can't take anything to do. So show the mirror, help them then plug the gaps, put a formal program in place, drive that. And that's an agenda that we've taken at a board level, at a management level. We've taken that very seriously today because we understand both individually and as a group that it's important that we enable people to reskill themselves, upskill themselves, right? And typically over a period of time, we've seen that when people understand this, they themselves start doing this. Then they come up with their own learning. They do come back and say, can you give us a little bit of help financially? Can you help us understand which course should I pick up, right? So I've seen people who, when we said, okay, take a 2-month break or a 3-month sabbatical, but come back once you do this and prove to us you've done that, people have stepped up. So I think it's about showing that mirror to them and being able to understand that. Individually, I think it's important that we understand the space that we are good at. Is it a space that is relevant as we move forward? Now, especially when we are in an area or in an era where nothing is actually standard. I mean, 20 years ago, there were standard templates: do engineering, do science, do arts, do doctor. Today, there's nothing like that. The world is quite fluid, and it's so fluid that you have opportunity. Today, you have a profession called a radio jockey, right? I have a lot of my radio jockey friends. It is a profession by itself and a passion by itself, right? Now, that person as well, for example, needs to be knowing that what's going to happen to his industry 20 years down the line. Does he have the skill? So I think it's also important for us as individuals to be able to understand that space a little more proactively, reach out to people, reach out to organizations, reach out to friends, and reskill ourselves. I think that's the way I would. One example I can give you a live example. So in telecom, when we started off with telecom, and in telecom, it's a lot about numbers, right? Because you have consumer data, you have data about consumers' behavior. So we used to work on Excel. And I, as an individual, and I started off my marketing career, you would have also seen personally, a lot of people would have been sitting in front of the computer for 24 hours, generating data, crunching the data, making it into some Excel sheet, reports and all that, right? Now, it was fun. And for me, it was fun. It consumed a lot of time. So when I stepped back and looked at it, it looked like saying, boss, if I work for 24 hours, out of that 16 hours, I'm actually doing the Excel sheet work. Only 8 hours is actually that.
Now, data entry.
Data entry. It is data entry and data collation, right? Now, suddenly one fine morning, you come up with tools which can just do what you have been doing for 16 hours. Now the question is, I have 24 hours with me. Earlier, I was actually using it for some purpose. That purpose has been automated today. So what do I do with the 16 hours today, right? And that I thought was my biggest strength. I thought my biggest strength was collating data. Little did I realize later that, boss, listen, collating data somebody can do. But the biggest strength comes in when you understand that data. Then you get into saying, okay, how do I understand data? How do I look at data? So it's just an example. I think a lot of things like this will happen. So it is about us preparing ourselves for that.
So having that vision is very important, and being on your toes and knowing exactly where you want to head and where that industry or that profession is going to head. That's what is very important. That's what you're saying, Venki. Okay, I have a question from Ravi Das Gupta. Ravi was my first guest in conversation with, and he happens to be the ex group HR head of Biocon. And a very interesting question, because he's been somebody who's been in that space himself. The last year has been very challenging for businesses, big and small. Can you share with us some of the special challenges you faced and the learnings from these experiences? Because I think that's going to add a lot of value to people who are listening here. Venki.
Yeah, definitely. I think last year has been a very difficult year. I think it's been an exciting year, but it's a very difficult year. When I look at the country, it's been definitely difficult. And I would pray that it doesn't happen again for any economy for that matter, or for people for that matter. It's been an exciting year. Professionally, it's been it's been a year that's been difficult but exciting from some of the learnings that we picked up, right? And how we've been able to manage it with different industries, different sets of people. If I were to look at from something that we picked up, one is of course to be clear that life is not normal, right? The pandemic, first and foremost, what it taught us is you can't take life for granted. And I think that's the biggest learning that we've got, whether it's personal or professional. I think you can never take life for granted. Things that you took for granted one fine morning just didn't exist. What do you do then, right? Professionally, if you were to look at from an industry company perspective, it was virtually like one fine morning, your entire system was put to a halt. Your factory was put to a halt. Your sales teams were put to a halt. So you virtually were in a situation where nothing can move. It's a lockdown, nothing moves out of anything, right? How do you then, what it helped was to, can you hear me, Manoj?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So the first learning is never take things for granted, and therefore always have a plan B. as an organization, it's very important that you have a plan B, right? And the plan B needs to take into consideration some of the wildest things that you probably would think. No. So one of the things that helped us, for example, incidentally, is that as this whole pandemic started happening, somewhere we did believe that, listen, work from home is going to be a reality, right? And that's a thought process that was running in our minds. We were skeptical about this as a group of individuals. We were skeptical, but we said, what happens if it was work from home? And one of the things that happened was, as the pandemic was spreading out in China, since we had a lot of vendors in China, we did get to know that, listen, there is going to be a period of time when there is possibility that a shutdown is going to happen. I mean, we didn't expect it to be a countrywide shutdown. We did expect that it will be probably 1 or 2 towns. So how do you? So when the thought was about how would you handle it if 1 or 2 towns get shut down, how do you handle business? There was suddenly this thought to say, hey, listen, what happens if the entire country shuts down, right? What do you do? Then the answer was to say, we can't do anything about it. Then somebody said, no, but we can do it virtually. Why not, right? Now that's when the work from home concept came in. When the work from home concept came in, what happened was, more than the concept, we were able to actually, what we did quickly was to say, okay, look at all the processes that you have in the organization. Can all these processes be virtual? What does it take that if the office is not there tomorrow, can this process run, right? So we had a set of some 10, 15 processes that we rehearsed as the pandemic started expanding. Before that, we rehearsed to say, if this process were not there in the office, would you be able to do it? So over a period of time, when the criticality of the whole thing happened, we were amongst the few organizations who were quite confident to say, boss, we will work 100% from home.
Wow.
Right. Okay. Other than just the factory and of course the research and development center, which needed physical work at the place, most of the organizations, 70-80% of the organizations moved to work from home. Wow. One of the reasons for that. So the learning that we picked up is, as long as you have a plan B and you think through the plan B, I think organizationally you get a benefit which is far more stronger. You're ready, right? I think that's the first one. The second one that it taught us very clearly is that there are no boundaries. So, for example, equally during this period, our organization, Cavinkare, works in a space where the pandemic opened up a lot of business opportunities for us, right? It could be quite ironical, but I think as a business, it opened up a lot of opportunities for us. Now, how do you capture that opportunity? If in a normal pace of time, I would have captured that opportunity with a set of processes, process A, process B, process C, process D, this stage gate, this filter. It would have taken me 24 months to start something and finish something. Got it. Whereas in this case, what we said is, listen, I don't have the time. If I have to do it, I have to do it in the next 40 days, or I lose the opportunity. Then we sat back for just a day or two. We sat back to say, what is in it that is stopping us from doing it in 45 days time? Now, then many things came out: hierarchy, approvals, right? The process goes step after step. You have to check this. There are some processes who God knows when it was created, but it keeps followed. We keep following, right? I mean, if I had the time, I could tell you the joke. Go ahead. There is this army camp where there is a seat where 2 Jawans keep. It's a WhatsApp joke at the end of the day. Yeah. This army camp where the Jawans actually are guarding a seat, right? And it's been happening for a long time. So one fine morning, some gentleman wanted to understand, what is this ritual about? What is the logic behind this ritual? Now, nobody could answer that. And they finally went back to somebody maybe 30 years ago who was actually the person who created that. They asked him. And his question was, I hope the paint has dried. Right? Yeah. So it is like that. I think there were some processes that somebody created before for whatever reason was happening. When we got into this process and said, listen, I want to do it in 45 days time. Tell me what else do you need? Cut everything else. Let's do it. Then what happened is we came across a lot of fluff that we said we can eliminate. The third biggest thing that happened was we said, boss, listen, to reach you or to reach the highest authority, it takes me 20 days because in between everybody has to sign the paper. We said, nothing doing here. Please bring everybody together. Every day in the morning, the entire leadership team meets. Whatever sign off needs to happen, get signed off there. You can take the paperwork later. You record the session. Virtually everybody is there. Everybody says a yes or a no. Approval deemed, please go. So fundamentally, this pandemic that way taught us a lot of things. These are 2 things that come to my mind, a lot of things, but these are 2 special things. Organization has to be fluid. You can't have a rigid organization. Second, and therefore the response, to criticalities become very easy when you're fluid. And that thing, I think that's the first one. Second thing is never take life for granted. And I think personally also it taught us a lot of things. Never take life for granted.
Wonderful. So great lessons on that, Venki. Thank you so much for answering that, Ravi. I think you can take it and definitely add from that also, because I know that you are somebody who works on these as a processes yourself, and you've been there, you sat there in that seat as well. Okay, Venki, one interesting question, and we are just about time to ask this one. So this is coming from Anita, and she's asking, when there are too many things coming onto your plate, how do we decide which one to choose? Some are technical things to learn, some are opportunities to discuss with colleagues, some are interpersonal skill training. When all of them are coming to you at the same time, which one to choose?
Interesting. I hope I had a threadbare answer for that, but I'll attempt to do it in the way probably. See, I think there are two things that in a situation like that helps us. One is, I think we need to be clear on our priorities, right? And therefore, what's to be prioritized first? So a framework of priority helps, and that's where strategy probably comes in. The framework is important for us to understand what do we need to prioritize as an organization, as an individual, as a group of teams. We need to prioritize things that we need to do, right? And therefore, I think that priority gives you clarity as to what is important, what is urgent and important, and what is urgent but not important. And then you do it accordingly. The second biggest thing in this process that I've learned is, yes, it is not important for you, or it is not necessary that you should do it. Please delegate it to somebody else. If it's a very important task, but you are not in a position to do it, please don't hesitate to give it to the next best person, right? Delegation, I think, is a very big art of leadership. I think, and understated, but I think the single most virtue that I see people who are succeeding very fast is an ability to believe in people, trust in people. Of course, once you understand the capability of the person, but trust in people and delegate to people. I would say that's the way we will manage it. Otherwise, we would always feel 24 hours is not enough for us. I think it's about prioritizing one. For that, be clear about why you need to prioritize what. The second thing is, some priorities, not all priorities, we need to do it ourselves. Can be delegated to the right set of people. And as long as they deliver it, and we have a mechanism to monitor that, more than enough, I think, work gets done. And it's therefore, at the end of the day, collective leadership and collective responsibility that drives success in my mind.
Okay, Venki, a very interesting question from a parent. This has a question that she wants to ask for freshers. Okay, and a very interesting question, and I think you will enjoy answering this one. What is it like to be a CEO? What kind of a work and task do you do on a daily basis? I'm not asking for a KRA, Venki. Sorry.
No, life is quite interesting. I think interesting in the sense you keep coming across different challenges. You get exposed to a lot of challenges that you would not have expected to happen, and therefore you need to navigate through them. I think that's a good part of it, right? The tougher part of it is that you would be forced into a lot many things that you don't want to do. How do you actually therefore say no? The toughest part in my mind, not just a CEO, but I think the toughest part I've seen as a leader, as a responsible person, the toughest job that I see is saying no. That becomes even more critical as you have time, but you don't have, as you're running short for time, but you want to do a lot more things. You will have to say no. You'll have to say no to yourself. For example, you may have certain personal things that you want to do, but you can't do it today. You have to say no. You may have to say no to a few people because they would have come to you for a certain expectation. You know that genuinely you can't afford the time. They can do it better if they have to put a little bit. They shouldn't be transferring their responsibility back to you. So I think the art of learning no is what I cherish in this, if I were to do it. Otherwise, I think it is about the thing that I think most leaders need to facilitate is ideation, right? I think it is about actually as we have a set of people at the top. I think if the set of people at the top are able to establish processes that can be taken care, and then people can do the jobs as by themselves and distribute the responsibilities. Second is, if we can have a way where we facilitate ideation processes more. So you think a lot more, you are able to actually ideate. And in my view, I think ideation is a very critical piece that we need to follow. So the more time a person has for ideating, I think it helps the organization better. So to me, I think I would place a premium as a CEO on not spending time too much on regular work, but be able to actually look at few things forward, be able to actually look at a few critical things, and also be able to enable an organization that can ideate a lot more. If I get into small things, nitpicking things, and I get into routine things, I means as a leader, not me personally, but as a leader, then I think the organization loses the benefit of somebody who at the top who's able to actually lead it with a vision. So I think it's important that some amount of time is spent very clearly on thinking different things, thinking things that are important for the future. Reviewing things, of course, has to happen. You need to review progress of areas that you deem are strategically important and critical, facilitate ideation process, and of course, look at people. So in the priority, I would say I spend a lot of time on people. I would spend a lot of time on creating processes that can become streamlined over a period of time, and spend a lot more time in facilitating innovation and ideation in the organization. I think this is where I would spend my time. Do I spend it right? Am I spending it that way? Honestly, I don't. I think I have a lot more to learn there. But I think this is the way I would expect myself to be pushed to. And therefore, I critically examine myself when I step back to say, am I doing this the way I need to do? And if I don't do it, can I correct myself? So calendars become very important. Planning becomes very important. Execution of that becomes very important in my mind. And I think that's a journey that I enjoy. And I think that's a journey that I definitely enjoy. Yes, we do come under stress sometimes when you get pushed too much with too many things happening. But of course, sometimes you need to fold your sleeves and get it. So during the time of pandemic, all of us just had to fold our hands and get into what we needed to do. We can't sit and think about future because you don't know what the future is. At that point of time, we just needed to fold our hands and get into it and get the work done. I think that's the way it is.
So, Venki, you remember? I mean, I just got reminded about a CEO I had met. A company, the company was a Korean company, and I met him in his Chennai office. And when I went to his office, he had a huge office, and he had around 10 newspapers in his table, all lined up beautifully well. And during the discussion, I asked him that, "Do you actually get time to read all these 10?" He says, "I read all these 10 because if I'm not able to generate enough time to read all these 10 during my work hours, I'm not doing my work right." So which means that you need to create that time, because somebody else also need to kind of share your work, and you're generating the second level leadership. You're creating a set of people who can do your work simultaneously. So I think you summed it up beautifully. I come to the last question, Venki. We've just run out of time here. The last question I really want to know from you, because you've seen multiple industries. You've been in telecom, you've been in FMCG. What is in for tomorrow? What are those industries? What are those new opportunities that await the children who are going to start their career? What are those new um, things that they can look up to, the new career opportunities, new industry opportunities? What do you see? What does the future hold for us?
See, I think it's a very, like I said, it's a very interesting phase for a lot of these kids today, right? Because I think the opportunities are like them, they're opening up. See, fundamentally, if I were to look at, there is a consumer at the end of the day, right? So one of the things that is of interest to people is, if you understand consumers better, you would be able to run an industry, run a business of choice, right? So I think one career that you take is an ability to be able to understand consumers better and therefore create products, create services for these consumers. Now that could be startups, that could be companies like Cavinkare, Airtel. All those companies are at the end of the day there because there's a consumer who believes in that company or the brand that the company or the service that the company offers. So I think that will always be there. Irrespective, the technologies may change, the way people consume things may change, but consumption is here to stay, right? Unless we go on a very different tangential spiritual journey, which I think,
Unlikely.
which is unlikely at this point of time, but we never know. But I think fundamentally the world is laid on consumption today. So if you understand consumers better, and if you understand spaces that consumers willingly come to, that's an opportunity that you can pick up. Now, that is what marketing is all about. That is what sales is all about, right? As a career, when you look at it, that's what entrepreneurship is all about. So fundamentally, you understand your consumers and therefore drive a career towards that. The second set of careers that are coming out today is, along with consumption, there's a lot of the world seems to be moving it is a little materialistic today, if I were to say. if I had a different spiritualistic take, it would be different. But when I look at it from a business perspective, the world is also a little more consumption-led, materialistic today, right? When I say materialistic, it's not about anything wrong. We would like to enjoy music. We would like to listen to music. The way our forefathers enjoyed music was very different from the way we consume music to the way the people down the line consume music. But everybody consumes music. So maybe there's a career there now, which is why I said a friend of mine enjoys doing radio jockeying. He seems to be doing very well for himself today. Now, that's an industry that probably, so at the core, I think, is every industry is to a particular consumer or a consumption pattern. And therefore, there are allied industries to that. You could be in the back end of that industry, you could be in the forefront of the industry. I think that is what we should understand. And we should actually tailor our strengths towards that, right? But I think consumption is here to stay. And therefore, the patterns of technologies may change, but consumption is here to stay. And that is what I think, which is why I said, as a fresher, don't be bothered too much about what will happen 20 years down the line. We never know, right? At the end of the day, we can't. We can plan, but I don't think it will happen. I never imagined that I would probably spend 15 years in telecom. Every third year of telecom, I had this whole doubt whether I would stretch in any further. But you did for 20 years. At the 20th year, when you thought you'd do something else, you probably landed up doing something else different. So life has too many variations and surprises for us. So I don't think we should plan for it, but yeah, we should be prepared for it. So to that extent, I would suggest to the youngsters, whatever you're passionate about, do. Understand that passion. Do a little bit of homework to say, is that passion something that is going to be unique only to a particular space, or it can be a scalable space? If it is scalable, why not take that as a profession? Maybe. If it is not scalable, but you still want to do it, keep it as a passion, but try something out which is also scalable. That's the way I would put it.
Wonderful. So, I hope the educators also listen to this and then kind of give that vision to the children that this is something. Not everything is spoon-fed, right? But nowadays it doesn't happen. Not everything is spoon-fed. So I have these many times people coming and asking me, okay, tell me what is the next industry that will come up, which is the next industry in the horizon, which is the next green field. I mean, honestly, nobody has an answer to that, because that's something that has kept on evolving. We never thought that the sustainable industries suddenly have vanished, and some industries which we never thought would even take off are minting billions of dollars today. So I think that's the uncertainty, and I think that's the beauty of being in a career, because there is a lot of uncertainty, and then there is a challenge on a daily basis that you want to chase and run it, and that's something that is running. Rajendra has one question, and I think you answered a bit of it, but just one thing he was asking is that, do you have any suggestion for a solopreneur to speed up his business wheel? So this is from a entrepreneur himself. So Venki, any tips for a solopreneur also?
Can you repeat the question, Manoj?
Do you have any suggestions for a solopreneur to speed up his business wheel?
See, I think, like I said, there are two things. One, you will need to take a little bit of bets, right? At some point of time, I think taking a risk, taking a bigger bet probably helps us. That one opportunity that where you can probably take a big bet helps you jump forward, right? And it happens once in a while. Definitely it happens for all of us, but that one decision probably should be taken right. In my view, I think organizations small become big when they take that transition. Now, what is that eureka movement that you could look at? I think I would suggest, because I don't have a background of what he is, but I think what I've seen is that there is one eureka movement when you take the decision right. It may be riskier, but when you take the decision right, the jump is far higher, right? I think I would look at that. The second that I've seen very clearly is smaller organizations, when you're able to bring in some good big ideas, and those ideas get germinated very well. That's the jump that you get. The only thing that I would suggest for smaller organizations is don't have too many processes that will restrict your innovation. The one thing that I see very clearly as a pattern is small organizations innovate a lot and they become big. The problem is when they become big, they're not able to execute that scale much better. And that is when somebody who knows how to execute comes and takes over. So this is a world over phenomenon you've seen, right? Today, the reverse is happening. Bigger organizations know that they can't innovate, but they can execute well. What do? They go and take over companies which are innovating. And in the process, hopefully they don't stop that innovation. And I think good part is many organizations realize that today. So as a startup entrepreneur, I would look at saying, watch out for that Eureka movement. It can happen anytime. Second is, I think, don't stifle innovation. Innovation, I think, leads to that Eureka movement, and Eureka movement leads to that bigness. That's the way I would put it. Of course, there would be many other realities when we run businesses, but that's something that when I talk individually, that's something I can talk.
Okay. Thank you so much, Venki, for those answers. I think we've got a lot of questions and we've answered most of them. If at all we have missed any of them, apologize, because we've run really out of time. We've almost taken 15 minutes extra than what we was planned. But Venki, it was quite interesting to talk to you after such a long time, because I don't think we have ever had this long discussion in a very, very, very long time. It was very interesting to see the transformation, because I know a Venki of probably 2000s, early 2000s, and I'm seeing a Venki of 2020s, and I can definitely relate to that transformation. The way you've grown your ladder, the way you have expanded your knowledge, and I really, really appreciate you taking out time, because I know that how busy you are in terms of your work, the organization that you run, the challenges that you face, amazing work that you're doing there, and I thank you so much for taking this time out and joining us in this discussion. It was an absolute pleasure, Venki, to talk to you. Any last final messages or suggestions from you, Venki?
No, thanks a lot, Manoj. I think it's my pleasure, and I think it's my duty as well. Like I said, I think I surely think it's a long way to go. It is just a milestone that we probably crossed personally, but I think a lot of things that have happened good. I think I would love sharing that, and that's one of the reasons I think like I said. So thanks for giving me an opportunity to share the learnings, share the experiences with people. If this can help a couple of people, transform a couple of people in their lives, and I think that is what I think is something that excites me. My passion is about that. I think the rest, everything will fall in place, but it's about making a little bit of a difference to somebody. I think thanks for giving me an opportunity to make that difference. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Ravi. I mean, I think you're showing an example of humility there. So thank you for that. And I have a lot of takeaways. The 5 tips that you spoke about, the feedback part of it. So a lot of suggestions. Thank you so much, Venki. We wind it up here. Thank you all for being part of this discussion. The link is on Facebook. It is on the Facebook page that is being it is streamed live on. And I will be mailing all of you the details, and you can always share it from there. And you can always go back and watch this and please share it. Once more, thank you, Venki, for joining us and sharing your wisdom. Thank you each and everyone for being part of this. We wind up here and hope to see you the next time when we have another interesting guest. And this one is going to be a very, very interesting conversation coming up sometime later in March. I look forward to having all of you. Thank you so much, Venki. Thank you all.
Thank you all. Thank you.